Hey everyone, and a huge welcome to Well-Being Beats. I'm John,
And I'm Melissa. Great to be here.
and we are really excited to be back with you for our weekly deep dive in discussion.
That's right. Each week we dig into the research, the ideas, and try to pull out, the really useful stuff for your well-being.
And today, oh boy, we're tackling something I think everyone deals with, that inner voice, the negative self-talk. We've been looking at, well, all sorts of angles, positive affirmations, overcoming self-doubt, challenging those critical thoughts, even using things like journaling.
Yeah, and our goal today is pretty clear. We want to help you, our listener, understand how this internal chatter works, how it affects you, and crucially, give you some practical strategies you can actually use, things to quiet that inner critic and, build up a more positive inner voice.
Exactly. So let's just jump right in, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, so first things first, what exactly is this negative self-talk we keep mentioning?
Okay, so think of it like this ongoing conversation you have with yourself. Sometimes it's in your head, sometimes maybe you mutter it out loud, right? And it tends to be, well, critical, judgmental, or just kind of pessimistic.
That little voice saying, you can't do this, or that was stupid.
Exactly that. And it's super common, like really, really common. It's almost like we're wired for it to some extent. There's this psychological thing called negativity bias.
Oh, yeah. What's it?
It basically means our brains tend to latch onto negative things, negative experiences, negative feedback much more easily than positive ones. Like Velcro for the bad stuff and Teflon for the good. One harsh comment can stick with you way longer than 10 compliments.
Like, I definitely know that feeling.
Yeah.
So how does this constant negativity actually impact us day to day?
Well, it can have a pretty big ripple effect. It chips away at your self-confidence, definitely. It makes you more likely to blame yourself for things, maybe even when it's not really your fault. And it takes a toll on your emotional well-being. And what's really interesting, or maybe concerning, is how overthinking, which is often fueled by this negative self-talk, is linked to things like anxiety and even depression. Brain studies show these repetitive negative thought loops are often really active in those conditions.
It sounds exhausting, like a constant inner battle.
It really can be. And this negative chatter, it's like fertile ground for self-doubt. When you're constantly focusing on what you think you did wrong or what you lack, it's, it's easy to start doubting your abilities overall.
Makes sense.
And this can sometimes snowball into what psychologists call the imposter phenomenon, that feeling like you're a fraud, that you'll be found out even if you've got tons of evidence showing you're competent.
Right, like you don't deserve your success or something.
Exactly. And research backs this up, too. It shows we tend to notice, remember, and react more strongly to negative feedback compared to positive feedback.
Okay, so we get what it is, and yeah, it doesn't sound great. Yeah. But why is it so important to actually do something about it? Why address it?
That's a great question. Because look at the opposite positive self-talk. Research actually suggests that talking to yourself kindly can improve your mood, boost your productivity, even increase your self-respect. So, right off the bat, that negative stuff isn't really doing you any favors.
It actively holds you back then.
Absolutely. And think about stress. Negative thoughts are often a huge trigger for stress, right? And we know stress impacts, everything. Your sleep, your digestion, your focus.
It touches pretty much every part of life.
It really can. The sources we looked at really highlight how persistent negativity can affect you emotionally, mentally, spiritually, even physically. Now, having said that, it's important to note that not all negative thoughts are inherently bad or useless. Sometimes that little voice saying, hang on, double check that, or maybe consider the risks here, that's actually helpful, right?
Like
it keeps us safe, helps us make better decisions.
Okay, so there's a difference between helpful caution and just beating yourself up.
Precisely. It's when those thoughts become this constant critical barrage, this ingrained pattern, that they become harmful. That's when they can really warp how you see yourself, damage relationships, and even contribute to more serious issues like depression. That's why learning to manage these patterns is so, so vital for overall well-being.
Got it. Okay, so that leads us perfectly into the how. Let's talk strategies. What can you, our listener, actually start doing today to tackle this self-doubt and negative talk?
All right, let's dive into some practical tools. First up, positive affirmations. You've probably heard of these.
Yeah, definitely, like telling yourself good things. How do they actually work, though? Are they just wishful thinking?
That's a fair question. So essentially, they are positive phrases or statements you repeat to yourself deliberately to counter the negative ones. So if your brain says, I'm going to fail, you consciously say, I am capable and I can handle this.
Right.
Now, the why is fascinating. It taps into this idea of neuroplasticity, the fact that our brains can actually change based on our experiences and focus. By repeating these positive statements, you're like strengthening the neural pathways for positive thoughts, making them more automatic over time.
So you're kind of carving out new mental roads.
That's a great way to put it. And there's more. Studies suggest that positive self-talk can actually activate the reward centers in your brain, releasing chemicals like dopamine, which feels good.
Ah, so it actually feels rewarding to think positively.
It can, yeah.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond just your mind. Some research indicates that using affirmations regularly might even help physically, like lowering stress and anxiety levels. Probably because these positive thoughts can trigger endorphins and serotonin, those natural mood boosters.
Wow, okay. That's pretty compelling.
Yeah.
So how do we actually use them effectively? Is there a right way?
Consistency seems to be the big thing. The sources really emphasize making it a regular habit. Daily is great, or whenever you catch that negative thought popping up, maybe first thing in the morning or before bed.
Setting the tone for the day or winding down.
Exactly. You can say them out loud. Some people find that more powerful, maybe looking in a mirror. You can write them down, stick post-it notes around, or even just visualize them. The key is repetition and belief. But it's also important to remember they're one tool. They work best alongside other self-care practices.
Right, not a magic bullet on their own. Got any examples of good ones to start with?
Sure, things like, I am capable of learning and improving. Or I accept the best and worst aspects of who I am. Maybe my mistakes just show that I'm growing and learning. Or simply, it's okay to make mistakes and forgive myself.
Those feel really grounded and realistic. Okay, what's another strategy?
Okay, next up is cultivating self-compassion. This is huge. So much negative self-talk comes from a fear of messing up, right?
Yeah.
But mistakes are, well, they're how we learn.
True. We're often much harder on ourselves than on others.
Exactly. So self-compassion is about trying to treat yourself with the same kindness, care, and understanding you'd offer a good friend who is struggling. Think about being the supportive, kind inner parent you might have needed. Treat yourself with respect.
That mirror thing you mentioned, saying affirmations while looking at yourself, that sounds like it could be part of self-compassion too.
Definitely. It's a conscious act of kindness towards yourself.
That idea of treating yourself like a friend really resonates. What else helps shift that inner dialogue?
Taking a moment to reflect on your past achievements. This can be really powerful when self-doubt creeps in. Consciously remember times you did succeed, things you handled well. It reminds you of your capabilities.
It's easy to forget those wins when you're feeling down.
So easy. The idea is to learn from the past, sure, but don't get stuck dwelling on the negatives. Maybe even start, like, an accomplishment journal. Just jot down things you did well, big or small.
I like that. Okay, what else?
A big one. Try to avoid comparing yourself to others. It's such a trap, isn't it? Especially with social media these days. Ugh, tell me about it.
Yeah, everyone's on their own path. Focusing on someone else's highlight reel just fuels self-doubt. Focus on your strengths, your journey, and tied to that, try to surround yourself with supportive people, people who lift you up, not drag you down. Your social environment really matters.
Makes sense. Cut down on the comparisons, increase the support. Now, what about actually facing that inner critic head on?
Yes, challenging it directly. This is key. First step is just recognizing that voice for what it is often, your own harshest critic. Then start questioning it. Is what it's saying really true? Is it helpful?
Yeah, is cross-examining your own negative thoughts.
Kind of, yeah. And the sources mentioned focusing on effort talk. So instead of, I'm terrible at this, try, I'm putting in my best effort here. It shifts the focus from fixed ability to controllable effort.
That feels more empowering. It is, and approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, are really built around this identifying those negative thought patterns and actively challenging and changing them. It's like you're trying to rewire your brain for more positive, realistic thinking. A specific technique is to actively look for evidence against the negative thought.
So if the voice says, you always mess things up, you actively recall times you didn't mess up.
Exactly that. Find the counter evidence. And alongside that, consciously practice self-love and acceptance. Acknowledge imperfections are okay, they're human, and embrace gratitude. Research consistently shows gratitude boosts well-being and happiness. When you feel that self-criticism rising, try switching gears and thinking of something you're genuinely grateful for.
These are great proactive approaches. But what about when a negative thought just hits you out of the blue and feels really strong?
Right. For those moments, thought-stopping techniques can be useful. It's basically a strategy to interrupt the thought, stop its momentum, and then replace it.
How does that work?
It can be simple, like mentally yelling stop, or picturing a big red stop sign. Some people even do a small physical action like snapping fingers or clapping hands once, gently. The aim isn't to punish yourself or suppress the thought entirely, but just to break the cycle.
Okay, interrupted.
Yes. And crucially, this is important, you need to immediately follow that stop with a pre-planned positive or neutral thought.
Hmm.
Replace the negative one. Otherwise, it might just pop back. And definitely avoid punishment. Things like snapping a rubber band, that's not the goal.
So stop, then replace.
Yeah.
Got it. Any other techniques in that vein?
Yeah, you could try setting a timer, like allowing yourself 1 minute to acknowledge the negative thought, then consciously shifting using relaxation techniques, deep breathing, or maybe a short meditation.
Taking back control in the moment. What about journaling? You mentioned it earlier. How does that specifically help with negative thoughts?
Journaling can be incredibly helpful here. It gives you a private, safe space to just let it all out without any fear of judgment. This process itself can boost self-awareness and help your mental well-being.
How so?
Well, it helps you process emotions better. It can be a huge stress reliever, just getting it off your chest.
Yeah.
And sometimes just writing down a fear or a negative thought makes it seem less powerful, less scary. You're getting it out of your head and onto paper.
Like externalizing it.
Exactly. You could try just free writing, stream of consciousness, without editing yourself,
Right.
or use specific prompts like what negative thoughts keep coming back, what triggers them, what sensations do I feel when they arise? Is there any evidence that contradicts this thought?
So you can really dissect them on paper.
Precisely. And doing this helps you start identifying those negative automatic thought patterns we talked about. We all fall into these mental shortcuts, these ways of interpreting things, often negatively, without realizing it.
What are some common ones?
Oh, there are several. Things like all or nothing thinking, seeing things in black and white, overgeneralization, taking one negative event and making it a rule, mental filter, only focusing on the negative bits, disqualifying the positive, dismissing good things that happen. Then there's jumping to conclusions, like mind reading what others think or predicting failure, magnification or minimization, blowing bad things out of proportion or shrinking good things, emotional reasoning, believing something is true just because it feels true. Should statements, beating yourself up with shoulds, labeling, calling yourself names based on a mistake, and personalization, blaming yourself for things outside your control.
Wow, that's quite a list. Recognizing those must be the first step.
Absolutely. Just noticing, oh, I'm doing that all or nothing thing again. That awareness lets you start to practice reappraisal, consciously trying to see the situation in a more balanced, less negative way. You can also create counter mantras, like we mentioned, with affirmations, short phrases ready to go when a specific negative thought hits.
Like an automatic reply.
Exactly. And practice reframing, taking the negative thought and consciously rephrasing it more positively or neutrally. It's all about learning to talk to yourself like you would talk to someone you really care about. And crucially, remembering thoughts are not facts. Just because you think it doesn't make it true. Question them.
That's a powerful reminder. Okay, wow, that was a lot of really practical stuff. So just to kind of pull it together for everyone listening, we talked about positive affirmations, really practicing self-compassion, remember your past wins, ditching the comparison game and finding supportive people.
Right. And also actively challenging that inner critic, embracing self-love and gratitude, using thought-stopping techniques in the moment, and the power of journaling to understand and reframe those thoughts, identifying those tricky negative patterns.
That's a fantastic toolkit.
It really is. And the key thing truly is consistency and self-awareness. These aren't quick fixes. It takes practice day by day to really start shifting those long-held patterns. But it absolutely is possible to manage that inner critic and build a kinder inner world.
Definitely. So to you, our listener, we really hope you'll experiment with these ideas. See what resonates, what feels right for you on your own journey toward feeling better and thinking more positively.
And maybe leave you with this thought. Just consider for a moment, how different might your life feel if you consistently spoke to yourself with the same kindness, the same encouragement that you offer to the people you care about? What might open up?
That's a really powerful question to ponder. Thank you so much for joining us today for this deep dive.
My pleasure. And hey, if you found this helpful and want more discussions like this, exploring ways to boost your well-being, please use subscribe, like, and share the deep dive and discussion.
Yep. Help us spread the word. We'll be back next week with another deep dive. Thanks for listening, everyone.